Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, or whenever you happen to be listening to this. Welcome to the Film Realist Podcast, the film and TV podcast from a complete nobody that is hopefully for somebody. This is episode 139. I know what you're thinking to yourself. You're looking at your podcast feed. You're going, Kyle, I already listened to episode 138, which was your review of The Amateur, and you're not wrong. But this week has two episodes. Couldn't wait any longer. By the time you're listening to this, the season 1 of Daredevil Born Again will have concluded. And thankfully, because of the industry benefits that myself and my special guest have, we've seen the show already. So we're going to do some predicting as to how people react to the finale, as well as what we thought of the season 1 and where it could be going. I am joined by special returning guest, comicbook.com's Kofi Outlaw.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
All right, Kofi, we have chatted Captain America Brave New World. We have chatted Daredevil Born Again episode 3. I was fortunate enough to be on Comic Book Nation to discuss that. And before we get into the spoiler review, so if you haven't watched Daredevil Born Again, I don't know what you're doing. There's really only one major show to watch on Disney Plus right now. Paradise is concluded. The Pit is over. That's on a different service. You should be watching Daredevil Born Again. But the jumping off point I wanted to start with, Kofi, was in our review of Captain America Brave New World, you put it out there, and I think it was a very fair estimation that the Dark Ages were done with the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the Degrassi The Next Generation. That Daredevil Born Again was Marvel back.
You're a real man of the people now.
A rich man, by his very nature, is self-serving. A mayor serves his city.
Huh.
You don't seem entirely convinced.
Can you blame me? Considering you've tried to kill me a few times over the years.
As you have.
No. Incarcerate, maybe. Kill? Never.
I wonder if your darker half would agree.
Do you still feel that way?
I think that this finale episode really kind of redeems the season. I think that we can go either way with finales. Like, we can have finales that make you question the entire show, like the Losts or the Sopranos, which, could put people off and really piss them off about, the rest of what they saw leading up to that. We can also have finales that are so good that, they make a show, they really pull everything together or redeem an entire season. Because, like, you take a Stranger's thing and then you have like the battle in the mall in season, what is it, 3? Where you kind of a slower season, but you can have like an epic finale that really does redeem the show, or make you think, hey, this stuff is better, or at least the payoff was worth it, and therefore I can overlook some of the slower points or weaker points, whatever, what have you. So yeah. So the question really is Daredevil more your Game of Thrones, or is it more something like your Loki? You know what I mean? Where Loki is the Marvel show that had the two, undeniably strongest finales that redeemed anything else you had problems with in the season. By the time we got to 2 of those finales, you're like, okay, this was pretty good. All right. Like, and now we look fondly on that. And I think Daredevil falls into the Loki category. Not as well as Loki did with both of those finales, because I think one of the things that made Loki such a game, or just solidified it, was that both finales are so much different than what you expect them to be. Like, the first finale for Loki for first season is the He Who Remains, and it's mostly just a monologue. Second one is him going through time and like going and revisiting all that and making a decision to set things right and take it upon himself. And we get this epic kind of cathartic character arc. Or it was a Groundhog's Day one they did in the season 2 finale, right? Where he did it like a million times over a crazy amount of years. So yeah, like I think Daredevil falls in a kind of lesser Loki category, where this finale packs in more than you remember. In fact, when we got last week, we were planning content at Comic Book, and I had confused. I was telling people, I was like, oh, we got to be ready. This week is like so crazy, so crazy, so crazy. We got to be ready, ready. And then finally the episode came out. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, because I was confusing that I thought the team up with Punisher was in the penultimate episode, but I forgot how much they actually packed into this finale. So it was good to kind of remember and revisit, like, oh yeah, like they do a lot in this finale, because a lot of people are like thinking it's going to start one way. Matt's shot, is he going to be bedridden? Are we going to get something like a time jump? And it's like, no, we hit the ground running. Like, and I think this finale solidifies. I think the penultimate episode and this episode, finale episode, solidify when this new creative team really got the reins. This is the point where they just really did kind of brush out all the bad stuff from the old era and kind of really took the reins and were like, this is the show we're going to make. We are going to lean into a lot of that Netflix stuff, and we are going to make it clear in this episode specifically, if you thought this was going to be this Disney-fied stuff, we are here to tell you no. We are going to be making a hard-hitting, violent, bloody kind of Daredevil show. And in some ways, we want you to say we've surpassed the Netflix series, which this episode kind of does in several key places. We saw, if you thought Kingpin in a car door was like, the height of Kingpin violence, then Kingpin's just making a guy's entire jaw kind of fall off really does take the cake. So yeah, they had a lot to prove, and I think they gave you in this episode. It's weird. You could toss out, as much as I like other parts of this season. Like, I like the bank episode in 5. I thought that was a good single standalone episode, and a kind of, if we had done this other concept, where it could have shined. I like the penultimate episode for just being a cohesive piece of TV storytelling, which is all about everybody reaching the boiling point and Matt having to being constantly confronted with things about himself that he doesn't want to confront. Like, that whole episode is just emotional battery of him hearing it from Heather, then hearing it from Bullseye, hearing it from Fisk, hearing it from Vanessa, like, the Cherry, like the whole way through, of just like, yo, bro, you're not right. Like, you're really wrong, bro. And everybody in him like fighting all that, and then just finally kind of exploding and then ending up doing the thing he never thought he would do, right? Like, jump in front of a bullet. So that was great TV storytelling. This was for the Marvel fans. This was like bullet point for the Marvel fans, right? It's like, hit the ground running. Karen's back. Yay! Punisher's back. Yay! Oh my God, Daredevil and Punisher are fighting, and it's like totally rated R, and it's like crazy. But they do it right also. Like, it's also John Bernthal and Charlie Cox getting to finally let loose with these characters the way they want to. And like, that whole dynamic was great. Like, that scene in the apartment with the two of them, and that whole fight, and Daredevil trying to stop him from constantly just killing, and Frank finding these moments to just like shoot some guy in the head who's been knocked down or something. It was great. It was cinema, man. And so, yeah, I'm really hyped for season 2. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend the whole show was perfect, but it really made me hyped for season 2. And I feel like season 2 will now, based on what we saw in this episode, do the things that were missing in this kind of Frankenstein concept. Like, next season, I need to see more of the vigilantes actually fighting for their lives. And where we leave this season in that dramatic ending with the cages and seeing what Fisk has really been up to and just snatching people off the streets. Like, yeah, we need to see people fighting for their lives. We can't just have like White Tiger. We can't just see all our vigilantes and cell phone footage and, and all that. We got to see them fighting for their lives. It's got to feel, the stakes got to feel real. And Daredevil's got to feel like he's really in it on both sides. Like, we got to mount Matt's emotional story this season. But what was happening in the streets with the vigilantes, the crime, we just heard about it in news footage. And it felt like a different show while we were on these stage sets doing this character play. So, yeah, next season I need to be in the streets. And from the set photos, feels like we are.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's been a really interesting perspective on my analysis of this show, because obviously you and I were fortunate enough to get to watch it all at once. And then after it concluded, I did a little more digging into the comic runs that inspired the this season in particular, which is the Charles Soule run, which is titled Back in Black, which, as a comic book fan, which I know you are, really annoying that Marvel hasn't reprinted those. They have put one into reprint, which is just the one volume 6 Mayor Fisk, but all the Muse stuff is not in print right now. So if you wanted to buy it, you can only read it digitally. And the elements that clearly the original crew put into this, we're focusing on Muse, kind of putting that through, having likely more court cases involved because they wanted to deal with Matt's struggle of making that promise to Foggy, and clearly the pivot to have him deal with that internal guilt and not wanting to fall on the side of having to be Daredevil and doing things the right way. I like that progression, but if you're really combing through the show critically, you can kind of see the stitches. But what's been interesting is watching it all at once, I've noticed them a lot less. And as we've experienced it with audiences, I found it to be more clear what was new and what was old from the initial visions of this show. And the round out to the finale, what I thought was so interesting was, and I don't know if we talked about, or I talked about this with Rob, but one of the elements that I actually really appreciate, that it's a lost art in streaming TV, is going back to the Netflix era, which was obviously incredible. There were so many high points of those different shows, but each season, for the most part, was very contained. We're telling this 13 episode story. We're not going to jump forward and have teases to build into anything else, really. They were pretty much a closed loop. And the way that this production, however it worked out, being the evolution and the tension building leading to the last couple for 8 and 9, really do start amping up everything around what's going on with Matt, where you have all the bullseye stuff. Obviously, he gets shot, and then leading to the finale, and like everything hits the fan, where we have Matt, as you perfectly described, working through his own physical ailments because of being shot, and then Fisk sending his army of police officers to go get him, which is an element taken directly from the comics. In the Chip Zdarsky run, which followed Charles Soule, it was the Thunderbolts, which is just ironic given we have a movie we're going to watch with them in a month. But that really feeling like they're moving into the next run of Daredevil. And I made a TikTok about this, and it was kind of hard to talk about because I had the answers, but I couldn't provide them yet. Where we've had Mayor Fisk as the kind of overarching problem of season 1, but to see Wilson slowly unravel with the constraints of being just Wilson Fisk the mayor and being like, I can't be Kingpin, right? Like, the metaphor's not subtle, where every time he visits Adam, he's walking down from pure light into darkness, right? Like that, it's there for you. And to have the character do those things, and to see how his relationship with Vanessa evolves, and you could argue devolves, Matt going into more and more significant fits of rage because of everything that's going around him. And that's part of the duality of Matt Murdock and Daredevil that makes it so interesting. Like him pushing all of this anger down, and his relationship with Heather, you would think would be a solution to all of this repressed emotion, but her whole perspective on vigilantism after what she goes through with Muse just continually pours more gasoline on what he's going through. Like, the person he's trying to connect with obviously doesn't see things the same way as him. And where we see Matt just kind of even forgetting he's around the public, where he's like, I'm going to dance with Vanessa, and finding out like she was responsible for the hit on Foggy, and the finale having all of that incredibly well choreographed action, which is the best action in the show, period. Like the season 1, the Netflix stuff is a whole different stunt team, or some stunt team has been carried over, but continuing that, and Punisher just being Punisher, he is the version we know from the comics, where he's clearly a very talented tactician, but everybody hates him. Like, he's not somebody they like. It's like, we put up with this guy because of what's going on. and for him to just be like, I'm going to take down the dirty cops. I mean, obviously it doesn't go well, but the conclusion to this season really ramps up what is a substantial amount of the Chip Zdarsky run, which is where you alluded to that I'm hoping it gets into, which is all of that run and then Devil's Reign really
Yeah.
did feel like a Marvel event.
Yep.
Where we had the New York heroes. I need to see the Defenders, as you said, like when Matt's been busy doing court stuff or focusing on Muse or Wilson, what have the other people been doing? And I understand creatively, initially, they didn't want to touch that stuff at all. In my mind now, there's no excuse. Like, if you don't at minimum have Luke and Jessica, it's a real missed opportunity to make this feel like a television
Ooh,
event.
okay, you want to do this now? I was going to wait till the end, but all right, let's get into it. Like, okay, yeah.
All right. Like you have to, because otherwise it's these things feeling so self-contained. Like, this is New York. In the Marvel universe, it's the city. We don't have a bunch of like, we don't have a Gotham, we don't have a Metropolis, we don't have a Central, we don't have a Coast. Like, this is the place. And all these people are situated there. Obviously, Devil's Reign included a lot of movie characters, the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and we know that Marvel can't touch them with that. But the ramping up of Wilson Fisk's cop army and Cole Nash being one of them, I'm really excited to see where it goes. Like, that setup in the bar in the finale, really feeling like everything has changed and we need to ramp up. Like, we need a team. Matt can't just do this on his own.
No, I think this is the part where Marvel needs to get their cohesiveness back by making smart plays, by working smarter and not harder. I think, yeah, I think a lot of the rumors we heard for those other actors this season were for season 2 and getting season 2 in place. And because obviously the production was in the plan and salvaging what we had for this season was the only focus they had this season. So I think that, yeah, next season has to be the thing where not only do we bring in these other elements, but we finally get the MCU itself back to a place where it's cohesive. And I think it has to happen across movies and TV. So I think that season 2 of Daredevil, like, yeah, you got to bring in the Defenders, have to be back. You have to have at least cameos from those characters and at least give us scenes, because those are characters we can watch in action scenes random. If you just cut to a random scene of Luke Cage walking at night and then having to take on the task force in an action sequence, that's all we need. The average viewer will have to catch up. The experienced viewers will be like, oh, we know who and what that is and what that means and how significant that is, and we don't have to waste time introducing a new character or his backstory and all of that. So you definitely have to have that to make this whole thing feel like it's actually a significant change, that because this is a basically what Fisk has done here is basically kind of like that Winter Soldier twist. It's like now Hydra's in charge of everything. Well, same deal here. So the hero's kind of operating and trying to survive while still doing hero work has to be kind of the focus, which was the intrigue of that story. And how do you do that? And can you do it and still being a hero, guys? Or do you have to kind of like flip your whole alter ego and like all of that? So I think we need to see the Defenders and other related heroes from New York City in the second season being a part of the fabric of the story, even if it's just people Matt go for cameos to say, like, hey, can you help? And they're like, yo, we're laying low and, we're not getting into this. And if it's just used for just dialogue and trading ideas, like why does Luke Cage retire, or where is Luke Cage since where we left him at the end of that season? He was becoming the crime boss of Harlem. Does that mean he's going to thrive under Fisk, or does he have to like go in and make some like dirty deals? Those are just interesting ways to kind of weave these heroes in. So Luke Cage doesn't need to be out in the streets fighting right now, but like hell yeah, we need, if that makes all not only the MCU, but the Netflix stuff and that lore more cohesive. If Fisk has to go and one of his crime stops and we think he's meeting a crime boss and it's freaking Luke Cage. And he's like, I can't have any problems from Harlem. And it's this like veiled thing, of course, with some like racial undertones and like put Fisk in a white suit again and have two black bald guy and white bald guy sitting there talking, and these very veiled kind of things that parallel the real world. There's a lot of fun to be had there, right? We don't need to get into all that here.
Mhm.
You, as a proud Canadian, can stay out of all this mess, but you know, um, yeah, there's that scene alone. I'm just describing it, and already I want to see it. Like, I want to see a scene of just Fisk trying to bring Luke Cage to heel on the crime side of things, because that's where we left Luke Cage. And that's a callback that fans would be like, oh, that makes so much sense. And everybody gets excited. That's what we need. And so it's not just empty cameos. So, like, I forget, I can't even remember Jessica Jones season 3, but like where we leave her and why she's there. Maybe she's a person looking into Mayor Fisk and they try to kill her. And it's like, oops, you tried to kill, you know, the unbreakable, woman who just beats the living crap out of some assassin. Or she's sleeping and they try to shoot her and she's just like, what is happening? And, so there's a lot of fun to be had there. And there's a lot of ways to bring those actors back that don't make them suit up and do a lot of crazy stuff, but like that they're part of the fabric of this world. Now, I'm going to say something controversial on top of that.
Oh, let's go.
I think this logic in this storyline must, must, must be a part of Spider-Man Brand New Day. Like, I think
Okay.
it has to. You threw Charlie Cox in No Way Home, right? And so you've already established that Peter Parker and Matt Murdock have a relationship and know each other. Nobody knows that Peter Parker's Spider-Man anymore, and they don't know each other, but like now that's been kind of reset, but like Spider-Man is a street level hero. He has no more Avengers kind of clout. That's all gone. So he's just a guy in New York trying to do good. So he falls under the mandate of what's going on with Fisk. So I need to see I need to see Kingpin have presence in Spider-Man 4, even if it's not him directly. Like, Peter's got to be looking at the news and being like, "This is crazy. Like, this is like, I should have voted," or something like that, some kind of joke. And like, he's got to be on TV or his posters. The presence of Fisk, this being Fisk's New York, has to be there. Otherwise, like, what are we doing? Like, this will make no sense. We may need to see Spider-Man interact with somebody, like with Daredevil, just being around the neighborhood and having like a task, or the task force, and like having to deal with that and being like, whoa, man, it's crazy out here. And having two heroes just up on a rooftop, like maybe having a bagel talking about how crazy it is to be heroing now. And we have to see Daredevil for a minute, even if it's just for a scene in an action scene, as Spider-Man's just going around the streets doing street stuff. Like, he swings up on Daredevil, helps him out, and they talk for a little bit, and we go on our separate way. So we need to see that be part of that. That has to carry over to the movies. If you do that, it's a thing. It doesn't have to distract from anything else of the main story of Brand New Day. It's just that's like first act stuff, right? Like, where is Spider-Man now? Oh, he's in New York. He's trying to help out his local neighborhood. It's crazy because this is now Mayor Fisk's New York. It wouldn't be Peter Parker's luck to kind of reset his entire life when the world got into such a crappy place in New York. So that would be funny. That's Peter Parker. That's like to a T. But if that's not even mentioned, or if that's not, we're back to Secret Wars in the Marvel, or Secret Invasion in the Marvels again. Like, which is still the most egregious, like, this didn't even matter. Like, Nick Fury gets on a spaceship with his wife and we never see her again. She gets poochied out of the whole thing. Like, yeah, she just flew back to our planet. They dropped her off on the way. And it's just like, what have we done, like, here? Like, what was the purpose of all this?
I think that's a really good point. The setup because obviously Daredevil and Spider-Man, like, if you're not a comic book reader, but what's even so funny to me is if you're a millennial, these characters have always been interwoven in popular media. If you grew up with I almost said the Amazing Spider-Man, but Spider-Man, the animated series, the arc of the discovery of Kingpin had
Yep.
Daredevil in it. So if you have Disney Plus, it's there. And I think that would be such a great way to establish where Peter is in Brand New Day, because obviously we see the self-made suit at the end of No Way Home where he's sliding on the snow and Hawkeye the musical is playing, or not Hawkeye, Avengers the musical is playing. And to open up that with something's going on, and maybe it's like he's swinging, doing his checks, because this Peter Parker does patrols. He's usually got a police scanner, which we saw in No Way Home. Him swinging through the city. What's happening over there? Oh, it's Daredevil. And you can establish that they have a vigilante friendship, even if the secret identities aren't known, because the back and forth between those characters is always
Yeah,
entertaining.
it'd be funny joke like if they are friends and that and they don't realize that they know each other in alter ego form would be funny.
Yeah, like something happens and Peter as Spider-Man's like, "Hey Daredevil, like I know this crazy stuff's happening right now. I know a good lawyer." And Daredevil's like, "Oh, really?" Like just something to connect, cuz he would know
Yeah,
Matt. Like Peter would know Matt, but obviously he never learns that Daredevil is Matt. So yeah, that
and
would be really cool.
Defended Peter as Spider-Man, but then that's all erased, so he doesn't remember that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be funny. There's comedy there for sure.
All right. One of the things I found especially interesting as the season's gone along, because obviously there was a mixed reception to the inciting incident of the season with the death of Foggy, and somebody immediately found the number on the wall referenced Foggy's faking his death. Where do you now? We've seen the whole season. There's not a massive reveal that Foggy is alive, regardless of the fact that Karen comes back. Do you think Foggy will come back, or is he dead?
Oh my god, yeah, I wrote up when it first happened. I was the one who wrote up on comic book the number theory and did that whole thing and could Foggy come back and all of that, which is hilarious because in this business, kids, you get the screeners, but I still have to support your delusions even when I know the answers because that's
It was very fun. I enjoyed being on the side of the fence
oh
with you
yeah,
this time.
like but because that's half the fun of fandom is not it's theorizing, not knowing, speculating, everything being possible, not being able to kind of just throw out your things when nobody can really shoot you down. But yeah, so I had to kind of write this stuff up that the end of the season we see Foggy come back, knowing nah, Foggy could be dead. Look, we know that comic books love to comic book, right? And we have taken Daredevil now, and this isn't the Netflix series, which wants us to feel pain and trauma pretty much round the clock. So, yeah, I don't think there was one moment of the old Netflix series where Matt was not dealing with parental guilt, Catholic guilt, like trauma, burdens. Like, it was pretty messed up. Like, so this is different, and something comic bookish could definitely happen, right? You could definitely do that. Foggy is being, he fakes his own death and, he has some master plan. You could even work it into some other Marvel related things. Like he worked with so and so in other organization and something to get inside this to stop Kingpin's corruption and blah, blah, blah. And Lord knows if, depending on what happens in the real world, we might see some storyline like that pop off because it'll just be too perfect not to do. So, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility because even when they don't plan things, I can tell you, I've done the MCU since the beginning. Even when they don't plan things, when you guys, the fans, come up with a good idea, they have no problem than just being like, we'll take that, run with it. And, that was a good idea, but yes, we totally thought of that. Like Sam Jackson has a job because of that.
Yes, that's true. I Where I sit right now is it's really interesting because obviously getting to see some of the Easter eggs unfold. I did read your article on comic book with that, but to from a story standpoint, looking at the trauma Matt Murdock has been put through, specifically, obviously the motivation for not being Daredevil in this season, and feeling that regret and responsibility for the death of Foggy, regardless of it being something he was necessarily involved with, because obviously we know that Vanessa was responsible for it because of the conspiracy around Red Hook and its legalization and it being a entry point for all the crime in the city. I personally feel as much as I almost forgot his name, one of the Bash brothers from the Mighty Ducks. Which one? He's Fullman.
Eldon.
No.
Howard something.
Yes, Eldon. But I'm forgetting his Mighty Ducks character's name. I want to say it's Fulton Reed. I think that's what it is. I'm going to be mad at myself if I don't remember what that is. I have to make sure I know what it is. Yeah, Fulton Reed. There we go. I remembered. But as much as I love his relationship with Foggy, and I'd be remiss without shouting out Andrew Dice, who hated him so much in season 2 because of the way that Foggy was portrayed in his relationship with Matt. I think sometimes it's more important for characters to stay dead, even though obviously you and I have read many, many comics where people were dead and then they weren't
Yeah.
dead. We've got enough of the connections to the original run that the pivots that we could have moving forward, I don't know if it would be better for the story for him not to be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need it for. To be clear, because I kind of like was just talking about my cynicism of whether they would do this. I don't want them to do it. I don't think that bringing Foggy back serves anything. I think changing Matt in that significant way is important. And we already live in a universe in Daredevil where, mystical ninjas can resurrect people. And so, sorry, I have the hiccups so bad. And Sigourney Weaver can be alive for X amount of time with other immortals, right? So Daredevil's not exactly, they jumped the shark on like totally grounded reality a long time ago. So bringing Foggy back and faking your own death and all that is not, it's possible. We also had Matt's mom hiding out in a convent down the street, right? So like it's all been on the table. So it's possible, but I don't think they should, because I think there's like, are we going to be able to break new ground? Is the actor going to be able to do something exciting or new with it? And it's like, not really. All that's going to happen is it would be the same repeat of drama with Matt being like, I can't believe they're holding. He would come back and the first thing we do is spend a season of the tension of, you told me you were dead and I went through all this stuff and I nearly unraveled. But I had a greater good reason for not telling you. Oh, and don't be don't be the person you can't point fingers about not telling people, secrets that you're keeping for the greater good. And we can write that dialogue right here. I just did. And so we all know what those conversations would be and how that drama would play out. And so we'd all be fast forwarding through those scenes anyway. So it's like we can't do anything more with Foggy. I think it's better to keep Foggy dead. And next season, we have an obligation to like actually fill out Matt's new law firm and like that whole situation and like who these supporting characters we met were. Because let's be honest, Cherry, and I can hardly even ever remember the name of his partner at the law firm, whatever her name was for the scene she had.
Kristen McDuffie.
Oh yeah, McDuffie, who obviously had a much bigger role in the original show. Like we need to find something to do with that, like in all of that material.
Well, she's his love interest leading into Back in Black, like the run that inspired most of this. So it'll be interesting to see, does the relationship with Heather fall apart because now he is Daredevil going to I guess his secret headquarters just hell, right? Like you have like Batman's got his Bat Cave, does Daredevil
Yeah,
just
no, he
go
goes
to
to
hell?
Josie's bar, like that's it.
Yeah.
He's an Irish Catholic, so he goes to Josie's bar. I mean, that's pretty much it. Don't call me. Don't call me about from the wokeness thing. I did not write those. But no, like, yeah, we got to get like Matt's personal life and world like really solidified now, especially in this kind of exciting new context, right? Because you're going to be doing something by day and not just vigilante, but like guerrilla fighter leader by night. That's kind of interesting. Oh, we need to get some Moon Knight up in this. I just thought about that. We've done nothing with Oscar Isaac. We need to get some Moon Knight in this. Like the Midnight Mission, like we need to do that whole thing.
Leading into season 2 of this show, and I think then we can kind of wrap it up if you have any final thoughts, was obviously Born Again is on the nose with the reboot of redoing this show, but more so than I think anything they've done, really. The reboot is just, we brought it back. We're establishing elements we're used to, but as you said, and it's something I felt with the shocking death of Foggy in the first episode, which is if we're just doing the same thing, that storytelling gets very stale. So to do something dramatic to put characters through experiences that we haven't witnessed before makes it much more compelling. And as you were talking about with the where season 2 leads, Daredevil doing all the guerrilla fighting, one of my favorite elements of the Chip Zdarsky run is that's when Matt Murdock really like focuses on how do we get Wilson Fisk out of being the mayor. And you have these billionaires on the side who are trying to buy him off. So like the power dynamic of the United States, like federally trying to affect this one city. Obviously, it's New York City. It's a very important place, but there's a lot of potential, as you said. And I hope this is the case where we see Daredevil almost be the Venn diagram of Marvel's streaming platform, because so much of it has felt so disconnected, where you can bring a lot of elements to make this cohesive universe, the word you use so eloquently, back to where stuff matters. And I'm hoping that's the case. And even through its ups and downs, like Daredevil Born Again, season 1, still one of my favorite things Marvel has done post Endgame.
Let's flip it around before we get out of here and talk about, because we did get to see it in advance, and we've sat here for a little bit and had to think about other things and been shocked by plenty of other things that have happened since then. What do you think the biggest things people are going to be freaking out about right now after this episode? There's a couple things I want to touch on. Two things I think will definitely be at the forefront are obviously Kingpin's execution of the police captain, and are we now, I think there will be a big debate raging as you're hearing this about, did this show manage to surpass the Netflix series in terms of like violence, gore, shocking, I mean, even cursing to a certain extent. One of the most iconic memes of this now is Matt walking away and deciding to be Daredevil again by just saying F it and going.
Yeah. There's a couple notable ones near the end of this show, right? He's got the one with Bullseye and 8. No, that's a really good question. It is an element of film fandom and film and TV fandom that I've never appreciated. And I know we talked about it on CBN, which was for so long, and I know you would have seen it. Every time a Marvel movie came out in the Infinity Saga, it was, this is the best Marvel movie ever. And then for a while it was Marvel is back. And now specifically with Daredevil Born Again, it's, this is better than Netflix. And it's what's, I think, unfortunately just based on the creative direction that this show went down, and then obviously was then rebooted from its reboot. The violence that I had a harder time with, just because I'm somebody who doesn't love that. Implied violence to me is always more satisfying, just because the human imagination can always come up with something more graphic than what you see. And of course, the commissioner of the police getting his face ripped in half was not something I suspected whatsoever. I was definitely more squeamish when Muse cut into Heather in her office.
Oh yeah.
Just the whole, that one was pretty gnarly, which I didn't enjoy. Surpassing it's really difficult based on when they made the Netflix stuff. It was ironically 3 different showrunners, but each season still had somebody at the head of that show from the beginning, outside of season 1, because obviously look into it with Drew Goddard and Stephen Knight and all that stuff. But season 3 so specifically had its focus. And this season, while I did really like it, I could say is 3 parts of a season arc story where you have, and one thing I want to address is people lost their mind over Muse kind of just being a background character. It's clear to me you didn't read those
Yeah.
comics, because that's what he is in that story.
Yeah, Muse is never like, yeah, I never understood that. Like, I thought they used Muse perfectly. Like, the whole point of Muse's story is while all this other stuff is going on, something crazy is happening in the streets and nobody's really talking about it. And it's happening so flagrantly that people know who the artist Muse is, but and he's like famous because that's the whole thing with that's the whole reason they did the stupid girls thing. who run up to him is like that he's so famous that this is happening that people in the streets know, but like everybody in positions of power are so just distracted doing other things that nobody is. And that's the whole joke, is like Fisk says, is like a sanitation worker noticed this before the police captain did. Like, people's out here, and when they find out the numbers, they're like, Jesus, like, yeah, this guy's just been out here doing this the whole time. Like, and it's
Yep.
just nobody noticed. And that was like, and they did a good job, and people have been freaking out, but like, to its credit, they did sew it together with the kid and the testimonial to Heather, because that's like his whole point, was like it being feeling invisible was his whole kind of psychosis, and like finally being seen and recognized for who he is because he put on a mask and felt that was his real self, is like that was the whole point. It all kind of like wove together. But yeah, people didn't get it. Like, no, he wasn't supposed to be some developed character that we spent like a whole episode with, and I didn't need to see like longer scenes of Muse torturing victims like in the background. Like, no, I'm good.
Yep. All right, Kofi, thank you so much for joining me for this special regularly. It's going to be so, listeners. I think I should give you a little bit of inside baseball before we round out this episode, which is just based on the viewing schedule for a lot of the Disney Plus stuff. The fortunate accessibility that I have with some of it, I can't say what or not, but these are the kinds of things I think you can start to look forward moving forward because of the release schedule. A lot of the times on Disney Plus being Tuesdays, if there is going to be a special spoiler season review moving forward of a Disney Plus show, it likely will be this time, which is Wednesday morning. So if there is something coming up that you're hoping I cover, obviously follow the podcast on your preferred podcast platform. Make sure you have notifications on, and then you'll see these episodes, which I'm going to regularly number, as I did with this one, episode 139. Kofi, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I know when listeners have listened to this, you are also going to be discussing Daredevil episode 9 with your lovely co-hosts on Comic Book Nation.
I think you're gonna beat us to the punch. When are you releasing this? I'm sorry.
This will be Wednesday morning.
Oh yeah, no, you'll beat us to the punch way ahead. So good for you. Way to be on it. Way to be scooping. But if you just want to hear some people talk about the things when we feel like eventually getting into it, we'll be on Comic Book Nation every Friday at 8 or 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I always gotta convert from Central, but 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we will be talking about Daredevil and Last of Us and a whole bunch more, because the fandom content apocalypse is upon us again. So lock in.
Kofi, thank you so much for joining the show. If you haven't already, please give the podcast a follow on your favorite platform, as well as a 5-star review. Greatly appreciate it. Next week's episode of the show, as confirmed in 138, will be a review of Ryan Coogler's Sinners. So make sure you're following for that. I will see you next time. My name is Kyle Naranya. Goodbye.